So this week coming up, we have a very interesting time in our season where we are entering into an big time political event. We have a phenomenal presidential election coming up between really two people that we were all hoping would get to this point. And, you guys all into this one. And we've really reached this point where the rhetoric has kind of cranked it up a few notches. The people that don't agree with our ideologies, whether we are liberal ideology, middle-road ideology, conservative ideology, whatever those might be, people who don't agree with us have become, enemy number one. We have decided, because social media has become such a huge part of our very existence at this point, whether you Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, if you're 70, according to the kids at school anyway, you use Twitter. How old are you? I don't know. Twitter's like 8 years old. Regardless of what social media platform you choose to get the truth in your news, it's amazing how much the rhetoric has become so vile and awful for each other, and how even people I agree with, I find myself getting mad at when I read the stuff that they write. I've also fallen into the conundrum of people who get on to their social media pages that are friends of mine and blow up people groups, and ideologies and belief systems, and I happen to be in some of those categories, and then the next day I see them and they treat me like it's no big deal, we're good friends, because somehow I'm exempt from that people group because we're friends, I guess. And I find it really remarkable as we've entered the season that we really have sort of lost an ability to communicate. So as the church, we've never talked more, communicated less. We've never, been more connected and completely isolated at the same time because of electronics, because of our ideologies, because of what we believe, because of the things that we see in others that we are, too ignorant to see in ourselves. And we've sort of reached this point where, I find it really amazing when we start talking about the other side, right? We start talking about people who are different than us. It's not uncommon for people to talk about evil in humanity. We talk about it all the time. People are evil. There's nobody good but God, right? Everybody likes to quote Jesus on that one. And we have no problem acknowledging evil, but very rarely do we ourselves then apply that same understanding of evil back when we look at ourselves. We sit there and say, well, people are evil. It's like, yeah, but that's all of us. You are too. I am. And the reality is even the best people we know are evil, that we have a sinful nature, that we have an ability to hurt, to lash out, to crush people. And, we also have this inability to see our shortcomings. We have this inability to see who we are. But it's amazing what we can see in everybody else. And we live in the season now where we basically have, really what I consider to be, that's later, there we go. We really have this Proverbs 17:20, where it says, he or she who has a deceitful heart finds no good, and he or she who has a perverse tongue falls into evil. It really seems to me to be what sums up kind of the direction of our country in general. And we are getting, and I made this comment to John, we have candidates and leadership in our country that really is exactly who we've asked for, because of who we have become. And I don't know how you guys live your lives and the things that you go through, but I work all week long with parents and kids, and this is who we have become. I know we like to think we're not this, and we like to think that this is not us, but this is us. This is who we deal with all the time, is deceitful hearts and wicked, perverse tongues. And it's amazing how shocked we find it in others, but we ourselves are just like that. We get so frustrated. And I don't mean to pick on our opponents yesterday. It wasn't a game I was coaching, but when you have 11 and 12-year-old boys and girls, okay, now my son's a little over the age of 11 or 12. 11 and 12-year-old children who pour their heart into something. And after 3 months, they begin to, they're losing, the game's slipping away, they know their season's coming to an end. And the parents in the crowd on the opposite side are singing, na 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 na, hey, 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 goodbye. As these kids are just choking on tears, trying to finish a football game that just won't seem to end. And I'm standing there and I'm just so repulsed by this, but this is who we are. We look at this and we totally miss the point. I mean, these little kids, they're kids. My son's not in here, right? There's, I remember, we were talking and we me and one of the coaches, and we were talking, and we were like, these kids go home at night, they put on their underoos, they crawl into their Star Wars sheets, and they go to bed. They're little kids, 11 and 12 years old. They're just little dudes, some of those dudes are like 80 pounds. And you're like, why are you as an adult singing that to mock these children? And if I didn't have Jesus in my life, you should, because that's the only reason that you're all okay, is because Jesus has said, don't do it, turn the other cheek. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. I want to make them turn the other cheek. Come on now, we've all been there, right? Let's see if they know Jesus. Right? It's a good test. Also the verse we're talking about. It's a good test, though, right? If you want to find out who the real Christians are, punch them. Anyway, so we've kind of reached this point where I hear people talking about our leadership and all the leadership that's coming. One of my favorite parts of Article 2 of the Constitution is that the President is responsible for the execution and enforcement of the laws created by Congress. The President is not my leader. I follow Christ. I follow good, integrous people with whom I have a relationship. They are leaders. They are the people to whom I am accountable. The President is an elected official and representative. Now, can they take the country in places that I don't like politically? Absolutely. Can they take away Jesus in my life? No. Can they take away my, the things that I choose to hold dear? Can they take away upon whom my faith is built? No. Which means my world does not end Wednesday morning, regardless of what takes place. And we've reached this point where we make this assumption that power is success and blessing. We have become very Jewish and Hebraic in society, because that was the belief. The reason the rich young ruler had so many problems was because giving up was because the blessing that he had, the finances he had, the resources that he had were an example of God's blessing in his life, that God endorsed his lifestyle. So when Jesus said, go take everything and get rid of it and follow me, that was saying, go throw away the blessings of God. Well, we don't do that. But Jesus had this different attitude. And we have the same perspective, right? That we got to get Christians in those positions. We got to get Christians in those spots. Even though Jesus himself refused political position. Jesus himself refused revolution and insurrection, when it came to Rome. He wanted no part of it. He wanted a spiritual revolution. He wanted people to change from the inside. He wanted people to come to a freedom and a liberty and lifestyle and understanding, and so that they weren't bound up by the law, by legalism, by legislation of spirituality, by legislation of what's right and wrong. And yet we have a church that has become so legalistic and so legalized, and we sit there and we look at people and say, you can't live like that and still be a Christ follower. Even though the Bible says that he came to bring this freedom and this liberation from those bonds that basically meant that if you disregard one section of law, you disregard the entire law. We all live under this covering of grace and mercy. And so in Luke, Jesus goes through this entire lesson. This is sort of the Sermon on the Mount in Luke. And he's going through and he's talking about the woes, right? And he says, woe to you who laugh, because you're not going to be laughing forever. Basically meaning those of you who think you've won this deal on earth, you haven't won forever. And woe to you who have riches, because that's your consolation. And then he goes from all that, then he rolls into this in verse 27. He says, but I say to you that listen, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who abuse you. And it doesn't say what you're allowed to pray. Right? You know, so I think a lot of us, when we read that, we're like, okay, love your enemies, do that, okay, we can do that. You know, and it's like, I got some things to pray, right? You're like, I pray you, step in a hole, right? And twist your ankle. You know, that's become my go-to. Step in a hole and twist your ankle. But we have this Jesus is bringing forth this very hard lesson. You know, and then he says, if someone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other one. I get yelled at every Saturday. And I have people who have problems with something I do every Saturday. And I'll tell you, the hardest thing is to offer the other cheek. Right? I think we've all been there. And you know, you're just constantly getting pounded, you're getting beaten, you're getting pushed around. You know, I know right now we live in this fear, regardless of what this has nothing to do with conservatism versus liberalism. I don't care what side of that political ideology you exist on. Everybody's terrified right now. Because whatever the other side is represents exactly the opposite of what you want. You know, I mean, that's the deal. And everybody's terrified. Everybody's living in fear. And everybody's scared that whatever this decision is that takes place on Tuesday is somehow going to fundamentally alter your very existence. That somehow, if this candidate wins, they're going to go in and undo everything that I love. And if this candidate wins, they're going to come in and undo everything that I love. And in the end, really, the truth is they're both going to go in and undo everything we all love. And, you know, that's just life. You know, so in the end, maybe if we all leave the vote blank, nobody wins. You've really given that any thought. Not one vote was cast. I don't know. Who gets to pick no? China. So, you know, we end up with a situation where he says, offer somebody the other cheek, and if anyone takes away your coat, don't withhold even your shirt. Okay, now we're getting into some really hard stuff. And I think for a lot of us, we might look at this, because Jesus is just getting rolling. You know, and this is really introspective stuff, because we're reaching a point where I know the first thing we're going to want to do when those states start turning red and blue on Tuesday, and by the way, I do miss Tim Russert. I miss Tim Russert. He was my favorite political night guy. You know, all sweaty, just into it. His little chalkboard, remember his little dry erase board? Well, if he takes this one, love that. You know, but we're entering into the season where we've kind of reached this point where, you know, if anyone takes away your coat, don't even hold your shirt. You know, Dr. King said the greatest tragedy is not the brutality of evil people, but rather the silence of good people. And, you know, when we look at the response of Jesus in the midst of basically this pressure to take upon leadership, to take upon an understanding of, you know, let's go change things politically. Let's overthrow Rome. Let's restore the Hebrew nation to what God wanted it to be, right? Let's make Israel great again, right? That was the plan. That's what they wanted. They wanted Israel to be great again. Because Israel had lost what was awesome about Israel. And we got to get back to being Israel. So Jesus, make us great again. They had completely forgotten about the actual history of Israel. Israel had some moments, right? I mean, there's some good moments. Red Sea, right? Red coat. See what I did there? You know, we had, you know, whoa, that was weird. I wasn't trying to draw a parallel to America here, but anyway, it just happens to work out. So, you know, we have this make, you know, Israel great again thing going on. But, you know, the response of Jesus was grace and mercy. It wasn't fear. It wasn't, you know, I'm going to come in and I'm going to, you know, absolutely show Rome what for, right? Wait do you see what I'm going to do to Rome? You know, it's going to be fantastic. You know, God's like, I already did that. I gave you guys a role to be, you know, a royal priesthood, to be world changers, to be what I told Abraham, to go be a blessing. I gave you guys that chance. You chose not to do it. So now I'm here and I'm going to let everybody do it. And I'm going to take away what was this thing that was your thing, but not your thing because you're awesome. your thing because I gave you that job. You didn't do it, so now I'm going to go ahead and let whoever wants to do it, right? At this point, God's outsourcing the church. Right? That's what he's doing. And so his response is grace and mercy. And so I love that God chose grace for us. But we too have the same decision to make. We can choose grace for other people in spite of the lunacy of their vote, the lunacy of their political affiliation, the lunacy of what they want for this country, regardless of whatever it is, I don't care, right? I mean, I'm all for passing a law that outlaws, political signs in your yard. I'd like to see that one pass. I'm not sure I can get through it, but I'm gonna do what I can. To me, it's like, it's whatever your thing is great, but you have a chance in your life every day to choose grace. Now, grace does not mean that you become a speed bump, that you don't enjoy discourse, that you don't enjoy discussion. Probably going back to what I said at the beginning, we kind of have a failure to communicate here. I don't know that we actually discourse, I don't want to go Princess Bride, but I don't think that word means what a lot of us think it means, right? I think a lot of us, we have this idea that it's, discourse is, I'm going to throw something on Facebook, talk amongst yourselves, and then I'm going to come back later and tell you you're dumb. That's not discourse, right? But, I'm not saying we shouldn't have that. I'm all for intelligent discourse. I'm all for good conversation. When I was talking to the geometry students this week, and we're talking about proofing, right? Because every kid loves to proof. It's their favorite. I mean, when I say we're going to do proofs today, they're like, right? Because they can't even get through step one. Well, what's the given? You're right? You're like, I do a lot of this in class. So what's the answer? And they still don't get it. They're like, the question's too hard. The question's too hard. But I'm explaining to them that part of proofing is knowing how you can justify your decision and the steps to your answer. And I tell them every day in class, this is the preferred methodizing of decision making in life. Proof your answer. Okay? If it starts with any website that starts with a color, it's not a good website to prove your answer. Well, I read on BlueNation.com. Right, then it's wrong. Right? I read on RedNation.com, then it's wrong. Okay, that's a pearl, just write that down. Also, I told the kids this week that anytime you find something on the ground, don't put it in your ear. Also, write that down. I work with high schoolers. You expect to say that to your preschool class. But the reality is that we sit there and we talk through these things and we're explaining how do you get to the method of your decision. I don't care if it's the decision about your faith, the decision about your politics, the decision about whatever you're doing, how did you get there? And I think for a lot of us, we really don't know. Why are you a Republican? Because they're for small government. Really? And your proof is, so my grandfather told me. Oh, well, grandpa was never wrong, right? But somebody's grandpa thought the world was flat. Just putting that out there. But the whole thing is that we sit there and we say, why are we a certain way? We don't know sometimes. But yet we are willing to berate, belittle, destroy, hack at, laugh at, poke fun, destroy relationships over this, decision that we really don't even know why we made it. We can't go through the steps that got us to that belief. So Jesus takes this, he's talking about your enemies, and he's saying, listen, you have this chance to show grace and mercy. You have a decision to make. You have an opportunity here to make that. And then he says, probably the most horrible thing imaginable to anyone who's an American. Good. Give to everyone who begs from you, and if anyone takes away your stuff, don't ask for them again. Don't take my stuff, man. Now you're taking my stuff, Jesus? Don't take my stuff, right? This is America. That's not how it works, man. That's not, you take the stuff out of my yard, bad things are going to happen. Right? If you don't think that's true, I invite all of you who are Facebook users to join the Riverbank Crossroads and adjacent neighborhoods Facebook page. There was some anger about stuff being taken to the little rapscallions that stole my lawnmower. I'll find you. It's like, are you threatening the life of a child because of a lawnmower? You know, I mean, the reality is, he says, listen, to those who, if they come to take your stuff, don't ask for it back. What is almost every political feeling about? My stuff. Whether it's my money, my house, my yard, my job, it's about my stuff. And Jesus is like, hey man, if they come for your stuff, don't ask for it back. How many of us are good with that one? We need to find Jesus. Don't we? You know, and I love it how everybody always talks about Jesus is the greatest teacher ever. Yeah, but none of us would have followed him. I'd have left right there. It's been good, this guy's a crackpot hippie. Right? Guy doesn't even own a good pair of shoes. Right? I'm listening to this guy. Should be teaching at Cornell. You know, but that's the attitude we have, right? It's we love Jesus when he's like, you know what? You know, love your neighbor, love God. We're like, let's do that. And he's like, and if someone takes your stuff, don't ask for it back. If they take my dog, well, in my case, I'd be more than happy for them to take any of our pets. But you know, what if somebody takes your stuff? I mean, when was the last time you didn't file a police report when your car was stolen? No, we'd be like, give me my car back. Unless your car's jumped, then you're like, yes! Jesus told me not to ask for it back. You know? In you, Jesus. Right? It's like, not what I mean. Right? But now we're getting into some, this is anti-American. Jesus has gone, right? I mean, no, Jesus, you are straying out from the Constitution here, and this is why he couldn't be president, right? But look what he says next. This is the weirdest verse in the whole placement here. Because he says, if people take your stuff, don't ask for it back. And then he says, do to others as you would have them do to you. If people take your stuff, don't ask for it back. Do to others as you would have them do to you. Think about the way those two things connect. Really, because what Jesus is saying is that we're going to have moments in our life where we're guilty takers too. Because we're going to have moments where we take. I don't know about you guys, but I've had moments in my life where I took. I stole a bunch of fishing lures from Payless when I was a kid. A lot of them. My dad made me take them back so he didn't talk to Jesus. My dad made me admit what I had done. It's horrible. My dad was a Christian. I had been gotten away scot-free. Forgiveness. You know, but the thing is that we've all been guilty takers. We've all taken something. It's remarkable how many of us, you know, really have no problem at all, you know, fudging the taxes a little. I mean, not me, absolutely. You know, but we'll sit there and get mad at someone else when they steal. You know, and so Jesus is putting us in a weird spot with this verse, and basically he's saying the same forgiveness that we will inevitably seek, we must always seek to give. The same forgiveness that we will inevitably seek. Everybody in this room will inevitably seek forgiveness. Now, it may not be for theft. It might be for, you know, saying a dumb thing. It might be for responding to something in anger. It might be for whatever your sin du jour is, whatever works for you. You know, we all are going to have these moments, but basically we are inevitably going to seek forgiveness. If you have spent your entire life and you have never sought forgiveness, Either you are phenomenal or you are the biggest jerk on earth. Because that means that you've never gone out of your way to say, I realize my error here. And like I said, I see forgiveness all the time. I make mistakes all the time. I work at, between the environments, especially during football season when I got people screaming at me. I am not perfect in my responses. And a lot of times, I'm just flat out. I go straight for the win, right? I go straight for the win. You drop your gloves, I'm going for the knockout. That's the attitude in a conversation when someone confronts me. And I've had to go back to a lot of people saying, you know what, I do apologize to my coaches last night because I was flipping out on them on the sidelines because they weren't doing something I was asking them to do. And so I had to ask forgiveness in the last, 13 hours. I've had to do it a lot. It's forgiveness that I will inevitably seek continually for the rest of my life. I will. I make mistakes every day in the stuff that I say, the stuff that I do. I like to believe that sort of wrestling, that conviction of my faith is what's allowed me to be more sensitive when I do make mistakes. Maybe there were times when I would have just said, no big deal, they'll get over it, I'll get over it, we'll move on, right? Because that always works, by the way. Big fan of the just move on thing. Yeah, gosh, I wish. Doesn't work that way though, right? It eats at you, it tears at you. And you have these moments where, you're thinking to yourself, I gotta go get forgiveness. But Jesus is saying, listen, you gotta seek to give it because you're gonna inevitably have to ask for it. And giving forgiveness is so much harder than asking for it. Asking for it might require a bit of humility in a moment. Giving it requires actual transition of where you're at. And I have had so many people say that they forgive me and then bring it up the next time I stumble. Right? Well, and it's like, well, I knew you'd do that again because, you're a jerk and you did it last time. It's like, oh, wow, you totally forgave me. By writing it all down. And so to me, it's like, Jesus puts it in that spot. And then he kind of transitions into this portion where he says, if you love those who love you, big deal, right? Okay, that's what credit is to you. That's actually the Message translation. I'm not sure, but it should be, right? Big deal, big whoop-de-doo. For even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, big deal. For even sinners do the same, right? So now Jesus is drawing the line between the way we should act as Christians and the way people who are not Christians should be acting. That he's putting us in a really interesting spot. And then he says, if you lend to those from whom you hope to receive, what credit is to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to receive as much. Again, so loving and giving to only those we assume we will receive from, it's not really what's asked of us, right? It's so easy to love people who love you. It's so easy to go out of your way for people who go out of their way for you. It's so easy. It doesn't credit you anything. It's a reciprocated relationship. It's not hard when someone's singing your praises for you to just go, man, I love that guy. I love him. You mean the guy who was just telling you you're awesome? Yeah. Good guy, good character guy, good man of judgment, discernment, really in tune with God. Right? And it's funny because the students that drive me the most crazy are the students I constantly say, man, I love that guy. And all the kids are like, why? I was like, I don't know. He's different than you are. He's fun. Isn't he a pain? Absolutely. Love that guy. And what's great with those kids is when they're really going for it and they're trying to drag it out, and you're like, man, love you, dude, you're awesome. And they're just like, what? No, I'm being a jerk. Yeah, you are. But it doesn't mean that I don't think you're funny. And it's like, that's one of my favorite things, but it's all rainbows and unicorns in our life. Right? It's just not how it works. We love rainbows and unicorns. We want everything to be rainbows and unicorns. I want everybody who loves me just to hang out. And everybody who doesn't like me, go hang out with somebody else. It's so much easier for me. Right? It really is, but Jesus is like, there's no credit to you for loving people who think you're awesome. It's not hard. It's hard to love people who are constantly biting at you. It's hard to love people who look for your buttons. Right? Like they're on a scavenger hunt. And you're like, do you really have nothing better to do than to annoy me right now? Does no one have any of those people in their lives? I've got a few you can borrow. If life's going really hunky-dory for you, give me a call. I've got a few folks I'd like to connect with you on social media. But it's easy to love people who are constantly filling your ears with the right words. And the people who are just, people who are showering you with gifts. People are like, hey, can I borrow $50? I'll give you 9,000 back. You're like, absolutely. God bless you. I'm here to give. Right? It's hard when someone goes, give me $50. I'm really hurting here. Well, you gonna pay me back? No. Matter of fact, probably gonna ask for 50 more to borrow. Right? Got a lot of those friends. Right? Goodbye, money. Right? I'm losing a dear friend. But that's not hard. It's not hard to love those people. And so Jesus then transitions away from the unicorns and rainbows that we all wish life was. And he says, but love your enemies. Do good. Lend. Okay, now you're messing with my stuff again, Jesus. Right? Now you're messing with my stuff again. Do good, lend. Expect nothing in return. Not cool, Jesus. Obviously not a big fan of, capitalism. Your reward will be great. You will be children of the Most High. For he is kind to the ungrateful and to the wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful. God is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked, and we are asked to do the same. It's hard. This is one of those where, honestly, I wish that, Luke had forgotten to write this down. It would have been a lot easier. Luke's like, there was something else. We're good, But this is tough. We are in the next 48 hours in our country, every 4 years, is extremely emotional for people. And people are going to say awful, mean, horrible things to each other. And, Tuesday night at around 9 o'clock, once we start to realize who the Electoral College has decided to elect this year. You have decided. Anyway, in about 48 hours, you're going to have people who are going to begin to pour out their emotion on social media, and it will probably involve something like our country's going to hell in a handcart. I'm loading up on ammunition, right? Because that's a big one. Yeah. Because when the Army moves in, good luck. Church is going to lose its 501c3. That's a big one, right? Because every politician's out to take that, which is biblical, by the way. 501c3, it's in there. But it's like, we're going to reach this point where it doesn't matter who wins. That the rhetoric is going to kick it up a notch, and for the next 3 weeks you're going to have depression and anger and viciousness and maliciousness and all kinds of horrible stuff. And I know that all of us in this room, we have people we're hoping win. Most of us probably won't necessarily even acknowledge who we vote for when all's said and done. We'll be like, oh, I didn't vote for him. Right? Oh, him made you think one person. But we reach this point where we start to deal with this sort of anger and frustration, and we go into sort of our post-presidential pardon. And, Jesus is telling us because inevitably we will be the wicked, and we will be the ungrateful. So many of us have overlooked the blessings and the good things in our life, and we look only to that stuff which we might lose. We look to the things in our lives that we are going to lose access to. We look at the things in our lives that are being taken away. We look at the punishments, and we become the ungrateful. We become the wicked. And we look at other people, and we see that evil in them real fast, and we don't see it in ourselves, and we say, look at you. You don't deserve that. This is horrible, and you're not grateful for what you have. But yet we find ourselves in that camp, and Jesus is saying, listen, be like God. Be mercy-minded. Know what we are to do. And it's hard because, man, it's hard to get out of bed in the morning on Tuesday every 4 years and not want to make your point. It's hard. I got to say what's on my heart, Jesus. And Jesus is like, what would be a good thing to do today would be to go love somebody like I told you to. What would be a good thing today is to keep in mind that what you say doesn't go away. That what you put on your Facebook page or your Snapchat goes away, but what you put out there in cyberspace doesn't go away. The decisions you make today, they don't go away. The people you hurt today don't heal today. The stuff that you ignore, the mercy you withhold, it's not yours to withhold. We are told this Christian gig it's rough. It's rough on us. This isn't fun. It calls into question a lot of what our patriotism, faith, relationship amalgam convolutes. The American Christian is often confused and can't separate the patriotism from actual faith. But we're called to be Christians. And Jesus, in that situation, this could not have been fun for people to hear. Love the people who despise you. Love your enemies. Now, I don't know how many actual enemies I've had in my life. When people actually, out to get me. Probably a few thousand. Seems fair. But it's amazing how many, I don't know what I like to call them, kind of temporary enemies we all have. Where people, they decide they despise us for a season because of our affiliation or whatever. But Jesus says, love the worst of the worst in your life. Because I will tell you, there is one people group that I really would like to see, even if they are Christians, held out of heaven for a while. Just for a few minutes, just to make them sweat it out. And that's hackers. People who hack and take your identity and steal your stuff and do all these horrible things and ruin your life. Anybody ever had any of those people? We've had check cards stolen, we've had check fraud, we've been, those people, very rarely do I say, come to Jesus. Usually it's something else, right? Because I can't stand them, But the reality is, those people are my enemies, and Jesus is like, if they take your stuff, let them. No. No. Rot in prison. That's what Jesus would want. It's hard. And this is not a sermon on, hey, Christians, go be speed bumps and don't care and let people walk all over you. This is Jesus making a very extreme, powerful point, which is the only thing that separates us from everybody else. Don't tell me you have faith and then declare the sky is falling on Tuesday night. Good, let the sky fall. Right? Let's all go home to Jesus sooner. And they take away our 501c3. Right? Now the church is no longer tax exempt. I just feel like it's hard, and I go through the same emotions. I'm not perfect. I always have somebody I'm rooting for. And I'm still hoping that Condoleezza Rice gets enough write-ins that she wins. We're starting that grassroots movement right here. But to me, it's I go through the same emotions. But my challenge to you is, whatever those emotions may be, whatever the things that you're feeling might be in the next couple weeks, lean on mercy. Now, if you've been wearing your, Hillary is my hero shirt for the last 6 months and she loses, you might have to eat a little crow at work. But have mercy. If you've been wearing your Make America Great hat again for the last 6 months and Trump loses, you have to eat a little crow. But do so with mercy. And remember that everything that we say and do, everything that we go through with people, is a witness to the difference we can make in their life. Is a witness to the things that we can do to bring healing and to actually be set apart. Don't get caught up in it, because everything you say hurts somebody. And I know that we got to be right, because being right is super important. And I can't tell you how many of my relationships in my life are built on me being super right. I told Lisa she'd be lucky enough to marry me. I nailed that one. But the rest of them, You know, you're welcome. You know, but the reality is that I don't have a lot of relationships that started with me being super right. Most of my relationships are built on common interests, things that brought us together, you know, and I don't just mean anything political or whatever. I mean, now most of it built around kids, you know, baseball, football, basketball. We make a lot of friends doing that, and none of them are built on being right. So be careful what relationships you destroy in the next few weeks. Be careful that the damage you can do with your need to be right. And no matter what, in 4 to 8 years, you know, we're going to be right back here, right? And who wins? Nobody. You know, ultimately, in the end, the church is just called by Jesus to be like God, be mercy-minded, grace-minded toward people. And remember that you need mercy and grace too. Because not one time have you declared a self-righteous voice, you know, on something on your social media or whatever, where everybody went, well, thank God, that was really nice. I appreciate it. No, most of us just read it and go, really. And breathe. So just remember that this week. I don't really care who you vote for. We'll still be friends. You know, and you know what? If you don't vote, we'll still be friends. If you vote twice, well, it depends on who you vote for. At that point, you know, we're on. You know, but you know, that's my thing. No one who wins on Thursday will fix what's wrong. The church has the power to fix what's wrong by showing people a better way, by showing people how to love and have mercy when, gosh, it seems impossible. And sometimes grace and mercy means allowing the other person to think they're right. Now, it's not easy for me, because my favorite thing in the whole world is to be right. It's like a warm blanket, right? Oh, come on. You guys are lame if you're not willing to acknowledge that truth too. About me. You can acknowledge it about me. I like to be right. It's really awesome. I can't even tell you. You know that moment where you're in an argument and you're like, what about this? You guys don't do that? I mean, I know you don't get to experience that a lot with me, but you don't do that, right? Are you trying to say get a little squirrely here? All right, vote for Johnson. Let's pray. Father God, we just thank you so much for today, God, and we know that you have the role of the church is expressed clearly in your word, and God, we have got to live according to that. Regardless of what our ideologies might be, our political affiliations, our animals of choice that we adhere to. God, I pray that we just can absolutely overcome that, and through all this process, be strong, be givers of mercy, givers of grace, even to those that we just, we don't want to give it. But God, we got to give it. God, may we be strong this week, take an opportunity to exercise our rights as citizens this week, but also remember, in the end, your call, your vision for the church laid out through all the covenants of the Old Testament and through the life of Jesus has and always will be clear. That we are called to share the truth about you and live differently and care for people and show them love and be a blessing to all peoples on earth. God, may we be challenged to do that this week in your name. Amen. Amen. All right, go have fun. Exercise your rights as citizens.